altogether?
Absolutely. I mean, we are agnostic to technology, so we want to come and figure out what the best solution for them is, right? To your point, what's the optimized solution? Do you need people on site? Everybody on site supporting your team, supporting your managers? What level of expertise do you need? Where are you in your journey? Do we need to leverage our offshore support model? Do we need to leverage an SPS like Civio? Do we need, or a traditional VMS, just based on the needs and the way they're already set up, servicing their staff augmentation? And there's so many factors that go into it. And it's not just procurement that you're solving that problem for.
Right.
And I think that's historically where a lot of companies have focused. It's like, well, procurement's the one buying the service, right? Because they're leading the RFP, or ultimately they're in charge of the statement of work. But the boundary partners, all of those stakeholders, all have a voice, right? And that's where you have to find out, all right, well, are we really solving for what legal needs as part of this? Are we really solving for corporate security, compliance, finance? Right? Finance is huge. And then ultimately, are you making the experience better for your end users? All right. I mean, every procurement person will tell you, if I'm there to service my stakeholder, right? We've got to make them happy, right? We've got, a lot of times that's why things don't get done as quickly or, as well as they should, because you're rushing to make sure you're meeting a timeline, you're fighting fires, you're making that end customer happy and getting them the signed agreement as quick as possible. So it's the same thing with how you're supporting them, right? Through your LSP and everything else. And that's why I said there's this gap, I feel like, with procurement teams. So when they sign that document and they send it back, they don't see all of those extra pieces beyond, right? It's not the full end-to-end life cycle. They're hopefully part of the upfront with the sourcing and the selection of supplier negotiation. More often than not, they're just getting an already agreed upon SOW that came across from a supplier. So really you're only able to negotiate 5 to 10% off of that because your budget's already been given to the stakeholder or to the supplier, so they know that they have already agreed. The stakeholders already agreed to that price with them. So you're really just checking compliance. You're checking, do we have the right legal language, indemnification, whatever it may be? Are the rates close to what we need them to be? Typically, yes, they are, because it's a preferred supplier or a supplier already in the network. And you're signing an agreement and sending it back. Your ability to impact is severely limited. So it's really becoming, part of that full end-to-end life cycle, and making sure that you're starting with your business stakeholder,
right,
but then coming back and ending with your business stakeholder, right? Because it goes, business stakeholder, us, procurement teams. Then you're talking about legal compliance, making sure those checks are taken care of before you sign it. Then you're going to finance, getting the approvals, getting it back to the end user, and then putting it in, hopefully, into some system where you're actually managing the deliverables and outcomes, managing the performance of the supplier, and then able to take that data and use it for future decisions. That's where I feel we have a bigger gap. Is everybody anecdotally wants to use this supplier because they're in the network, but nobody has, what is the supplier's actual performance? Have we been happy with what they've done every single time? Is the product always met the need? The service that they created, is it always done what we want it to do? Or is it always 75% of the way there?
Mm-hmm.
Or change order management. We talked about this, the variations. You saw it on the Wheel of Pain there.
Yeah.
Right. At the TSS last night, one of the clients said, I have a massive number of change orders. So any negotiations you save on, let's say it's a $10 million agreement. Oh, great. I saved 25%. We got it down, to 7.5. But now I've got 4 change orders after the fact that wipe out that cost savings.
Yeah.
In fact, you're paying more because they didn't take the additional time with the stakeholder. And it's not necessarily procurement's fault, right? It's often driven by the need of the business to really define that scope and those deliverables so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and these were really some of the key points that were coming out of that conversation yesterday. And certainly that end user part of it that you just mentioned, you really described that kind of life cycle very nicely there. But that is really important to people. And this concept of people going to the business and saying, how can I help you? procurement going to the business to say, what can I do for you? How can I make your life easier? As a technology provider, as a specialist in services procurement, we've learned our lesson over the years that we've been doing this, that like you say, it's not necessarily just serving procurement. It's like there's definitely that kind of a little bit of approach of like, no one cares enough about that. The business doesn't care enough about that. It's a tough world if you're a procurement practitioner. You just you've got to crack on with it. Sometimes with limited resources, often with quite lean teams. But where these programs can be put in place, it elevates the role of procurement by giving them more data and allowing them to help the business more effectively. So I always take the approach of, we always kind of preach this easier, faster, safer for people in the organization who need to buy services to do so and to also get value with it. And that really came across yesterday with these discussions with the clients and practitioners, which I just think is super valuable, because that's the information for people like you and I providing services in this area. That's what we need to hear and understand and reinforce, but also for them talking to each other. It just sort of clarifies things for people, doesn't it? Otherwise it can feel like super complex, or that everyone's so different, but when you bring it back to it, most people have got the same similar problems.
They do, and it's just a different pathway to that same problem, right? Or you look at it differently, right? We talked about the classification. Well, honestly, performance management really ties into a lot of that classification. If your suppliers are taking advantage of what you're doing, or how you set up that supplier on an SOW. You talk about these large managed services SOWs, they're really time and material. It's really staff augmentation hidden inside that SOW, because there's no outcome. Well, you're just managing people, you're managing a butt in a seat. You've got one of your own team members or your business stakeholder is managing that person on the work that they're doing. So it becomes, a problem that it just keeps feeding itself, right? And it keeps growing and keeps exacerbating.